Oh my God. So what y'all was saying? We praying for Durk now?
What?
I don't know what all this y'all saying has to do with senseless to me.
With Lil Durk caught up in a serious federal investigation that involves interstate murder and mafioso type maneuvers,
Well, police arrested Grammy Award winning rapper Lil Durk in Florida on federal charges that he paid for the attempted 2022 revenge killing of another rapper.
many podcasters were left to break down the story that was being unveiled in real time. The Joe Budden podcast, being one of the biggest platforms in hip hop media, was expected to cover it, and it turns out that they were ill prepared. Now, that's just not my thoughts. The A-Mic of the show, Joe Budden, thought the same, as evidenced by this outburst a little bit into the show.
I don't know what all this y'all saying has to do with senseless to me.
All the co-hosts of the podcast sought to humanize Durk, rather than look at the series of decisions that he made which put him in the position he is currently in. Transgressions such as continuing to dabble in the streets and rapping about bodies, all while he ascended to the highest levels of the music industry. Flip pandered to the street world, something he does often, likely because street culture is what he uses to skirt accountability for his reckless actions. For all the lip service Flip pays to the streets, he is privileged in ways he doesn't want to confront. Speaking of privilege, J1 chose to blame academics.
It's in the name of content. I don't think problems like this should be made in the name of content. Like, you feel me? Like, that's almost cop work.
Simply for covering details that are open to the public, and Parks was going to side with J1, that is until Joe made his opinions known and Parks went completely yes man and flipped to Joe's side. Then there's Melissa Ford, who remained silent throughout the whole topic, which was so glaringly obvious that Joe passive-aggressively asked her for her opinion, and she sat there and looked utterly befuddled as to why Joe would ask her to talk.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's not like she's a podcaster, right? Joe Budden gets fed up eventually because everyone's playing it safe. So he takes over and admonishes Durk for all the choices he made that escalated a situation that was largely avoidable, citing how Durk had so many chances to walk away rather than perpetuate endless violence. Overall, this episode highlighted how Joe Budden remains the leader that the show looks to for guidance in topics such as this, and how the rest of the cast doesn't really develop new ways to think about things. Rather than come up with a new spin or thoughtful talking points, the Bionic 9 chose to throw a pity party for Durk and overlook how he contributed to the loss of life and will now be cemented in hip-hop history as a tragic figure. Melissa Ford demonstrated how little she cares about hip-hop music, and it was clear that she did little research on its biggest story. Given that Joe Budden himself had said that Melissa Ford represents hip-hop, she let her boss down, and her lack of input could be seen as a lack of commitment to the pod. Is Melissa Ford on the show for the visibility, or is she around to be an actual contributor to the dialogue? J1 also received great backlash for his takes on this episode. So much so, he would go on to defend his weak What About talking points on Twitter Spaces and vowed to give Twitter a break, which is definitely a sign that the fan criticism has broken J1. And this isn't even a month into his time on the pod. I wonder if Mark Lamont Hill, Ian Dunlop, or Ice had been present, if this conversation would have been more thought-provoking. But what I do know is that the host Joe Budden did have in studio were not at all prepared to have a substantive discussion about the topic and instead chose to play it safe. It's in these moments that podcasters have a chance to take their show to the next level, but instead, on the Joe Budden podcast, they hit a ceiling. I feel like they really could have done a deep conversation about how the death of drill music is upon us, and rapping about killing your ops is a surefire way to end up in jail for life. As Lil Durk possibly faces the death penalty, it's time for a referendum on this type of music, and it's only a matter of time before labels start to put an end to that, because now that, there's a whole credit card that might have been tied to the bankrolling of these deaths, we all know that they're going to distance themselves. But let me know what you think. Do you feel like the members of the Joe Budden podcast did a good job breaking it down? Because I could tell as I was watching the episode that Joe was not feeling how members were giving insights into the whole discussion. Queens Flip put on his low voice, Ish put on his low voice, and they seem to try to criticize media more than the actual actions that were going on. I mean, look no further than how some of these murders are taking place. They're taking place in highly populated areas across interstate lines. Anytime those types of actions take place, the federal government will get involved. Look at the death of FBG Duck that happened in downtown Chicago. And now the murder of Quando Rondo's cousin. These are all things that will lead to serious jail time regardless of where you come from. I mean, if you're a rapper, if you're a mafia member, the federal government will come a-calling. But like I always like to say, follow me on Instagram to Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter to Stop TV. And once again, let me know what you think about this episode. Did you like it? Do you miss Ice? A lot of people seem to like Ice now, but we'll see. Alright, y'all. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.